Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society live stream, live with SMWS, as I like to call it, as we like to have a bit of fun, go live as often as we like, as often as we can, and enjoy great whiskey, enjoy discussing great whiskey, enjoy having special guests on, and discovering flavors. That's what gets me excited about being at the SMWS, is our exploration of flavor, is our fun along the way. Let me just adjust that. Yep, got it. Oh, I've got this on here now. My new addition to my mic. I've got my monogram poker chip on my microphone. So you know what? It's really exciting. We've got October Outturn literally in your mailboxes tomorrow from midday. We've got our November, December issue is in planning at the moment. We've got a whole bunch of events for the rest of the year. It's an exciting time to be a member of the society. More than ever, however, we've got a really special release coming out in our October Outturn. Pardon me. A .1, a 148.1. Now, we have a tradition at the society not to say the distillery names. I'm sure you may know that already. We like to say it's Distillery 148. That distillery is based in Melbourne, Australia. You know what? It's not going to take too many guesses to work out where this is from in a moment, because I'm going to welcome our very special guest who happens to work at Distillery 148. I couldn't tell you the name of that distillery. He might have to do that. That's not my job. Please welcome to the stream, Matty Follent from, of course, Distillery 148. Matty, welcome to the stream.
How you doing, Matt? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming along tonight and being a part, being interrogated by our society audience, of course.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it. Bring all the hard questions.
Yeah, all the hard questions. Now, I've got to say, to everyone watching along right now, please throw your questions in the comment stream, whether you're watching YouTube, our Facebook group, whether you're watching on our Facebook page, or whether you're watching on the Friends of Starward Facebook group, a group I've never even mentioned on the society group on our streams before, but I do recommend it if you're a fan of the distillery, jumping on and saying hello to some of the people on there. There's lots of people saying hello right now in the stream. This is great. Look at all this. Oh, we've got some bit of interference on our audio, but we're doing okay. Okay. Have you got a vacuum going on in the background there or something?
Me? No. Is that me?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know where that sound is coming from. That's all good. Okay, so let's have a look at this. We want to have a chat about Distillery 148. Tim, good to see you. Good to see everyone jumping in. We're going to learn a bit about Distillery 148. There's a lot of fans of this distillery in Australia, and for good reason. So I want to start off talking about the distillery. There's also a distillery in Port Melbourne called Starward, which is where you're the brand ambassador. Tell me let's start with what your role is, what you do, where it all comes from.
Yeah, sure. So Distillery 148 is also known as Starward. We're in Port Melbourne. My role is brand ambassador. So most of that is lots of virtual tastings like these over the last couple of years due to COVID. But outside of COVID, lots of events, trainings, lots of sort of trade engagement, tastings. Yeah, good time. Getting whiskey onto lips, I guess, and chatting to people about Australian whiskey, chatting to people about Starward whiskey, which is super exciting. Me personally, I've been with the company just short of 2 years now. Prior to that, I used to work with Sweet and Chili agency that I did a lot of work with Diageo through them. So more sort of spirits education across the whole portfolio. It was really good to sort of go from a full portfolio of all sorts of spirits to come into hang out with Starward and focusing on one, spirit. My favorite spirit being whiskey, and a company and a brand that I could actually work at the home of, right? Like I've got a lot of friends who are ambassadors for different brands, and if they're lucky, they go and see the distillery once a year. You know what I mean? So for me to be able to just go and hang out every day, go and chat to Jared, taste some barrels, it's good, and I'm definitely grateful.
There's a great question already through from Darren Howie who asks, my only question is, why wasn't 148 open when I spent 11 years working at Essendon Airport? Bad timing there, Darren. Bad timing indeed.
Yeah.
Look. So just on that point, though, what you've just said about the whole sort of being an ambassador for an Australian distillery, you're in quite a unique position in that regard, because that is something that even contextually in the modern whiskey industry is almost unheard of in many regards. I mean, you can look back in Australian history and find all the fantastic Macallan ambassadors and Highland Park ambassadors and whatnot throughout history. But Australian whiskey ambassadors as a role is contextually quite a new thing.
Yeah, it is. Like, Australian whiskey is relatively new considering the rest of the whiskey market, right? Which is what makes it super exciting. As we were saying, we chatted offline prior to this. Paul Slater was rocking the helm here for a long while. I just love the fact that it is, I don't know, like, I'm proud to represent an Australian brand, right? Like, it was weird being an Australian and like talking to a Scotch whiskey or an Irish whiskey or something like that, and you sort of like, you just you're not really sort of in it. Whereas I guess now it's sort of like, I'm in it. I sort of live and breathe the brand, and it's sort of something I can definitely relate to. But it's exciting. You know, I love the whole category, right, of Australian whiskey. It's an exciting time to be in the category, and we're going from strength to strength, not just Starward, but the whole category. And people are quickly realizing, you know, thanks to releases like this, how delicious Australian whiskey can be, which is awesome. Yeah.
Well, you say releases like this, which leads into this great question that's come through. I'll throw it up on screen now for everyone to see. I guess one of the major questions fans of Starward may have is, what difference does the SMWS have in comparison to your own single barrel releases? You've been very good to us in releasing so many experiments and unique expressions. I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, we're going to delve into some of the selection of this first cask with this distillery in just a bit. But how would you approach that one, Matty? How would you see that?
In terms of the difference of this one compared to the rest, well, a few key points. What main thing that really excites me about this release is because of the age, it is Essendon Fields spirit. And for those that know the brand, like the early day spirit, that Essendon Fields distillery spirit is just, it's quite unique. Lots of tropical fruit, lots of banana. Like, I'm sure you would have when you went and visited the Essendon Fields distillery. When I definitely went there, it's like you open the door, walk in, and you're just like punched in the face with this like aroma of like green banana and like banana peel. And it's quite iconic. And there's definitely some people like in the Friends of Starward Facebook page, I should say, that relate to that and love that sort of older style of Starward. So that's probably the biggest sort of call out that I really love about it, is that it is that older spirit, and it's also I think it is the oldest single cask that we've released. So it's
that's exciting. That's exciting.
Exactly.
So this is a 7-year-old single cask, so it makes it the oldest private release that the distillery's ever done, which is also very exciting for us because, I mean, just on my end of answering that question, there's sort of two facets to the two main facets we look at when picking out a cask from a distillery like this is one, is it utterly unique? Is it something that we can say is a unique single cask? Do we really like it? Do we just say, is it unique? Will members find this interesting? We're not always looking for, we don't use the word best because it's the word subjective. It's so subjective and doesn't really tell you anything. We look for what's utterly unique. Maybe a little bit of a departure from house style in some ways. I mean, the age will sort of differentiate that in some ways as well. And the last point would be, we had free reign to pick this out. I mean, this was sort of going through the warehouse with the team and saying, let's try that one. And there were ex-bourbon casks, ex-Apera casks, everything in that mix of samples that we took to panel. And this first one was the one we really sat down with and said, there's a certain stately, relaxed aroma to it that we just sort of said, what happens when Starward is almost twice the age of say, a Solera release? And we say, well, this is what happens. And it's almost an experimental release in that regard, but it's something that we've picked out for the members, and something we're very proud to have. And yes, Dr. Akers, hashtag altogether unique. That is one of our hashtags we have used in the past. So there you go. And Tim does say, I'm loving the nose, early Starward for sure. Some of you will already have a sample of this because it is in our whiskey and chocolate tasting pairing this Saturday night with the mad scientist of chocolate, Krishna Rajalingam from Basic Chocolates. There is, of course, the whiskey and chocolate pairing this Saturday. And 148.1 is one of the whiskeys in the tasting. I don't know if I told you that, Matty. I'm sorry.
Missed out on that.
I'll save you some. But there's I'm going to pour a dram of this whilst we have a look at some. I've actually got a bit of a trip through memory lane, and I was hoping you could sort of remark on some of these slides I want to show. I'll show some of the comments up as well here. Emmett says, how many cask samples were tasted before finding 148.1? Well, actually, funny story, Emmett, is we actually found 148. The first one that we were ready to bottle was actually 148.2. But this one we wanted to sort of be a real standout for 148 for the .1. So this was sort of the second picked cask, but I think we must have tasted through. I know there was 2 rounds of samples that were sent through. In the first round, there was about 8 casks, which none of which we ended up bottling. And the second round, I think there was another 10, and this was one of them. So I hope that helps. Outturn pack from Whisky and Helmet, of course, as well. Yes. There's the juice bags from Whisky and Helmet, which were delivered today or picked up today if you were lucky enough. All the juice bags are from Outturn are out and about. Good from the incredible team at Whisky and Helmet on 270 Russell Street. Absolute legends, absolute pioneer of the partner bar network for the SMWS. And great to see everyone coming in. So I'm going to show, I'm going to bring up our slideshow here. Oh, here we are. Boom. So you can still see us on the of your screen, folks, but I'm going to show some photos. Now, that's Essendon Field before it was even Essendon Fields. So that's really dialing back a bit there.
An old aeroplane hangar.
Yes, indeed. And right next to the WorkSafe or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Weird industrial park. Like, I never really got Essendon Fields Airport, like the estate as itself. Yeah, just a confusing area. But, there's lots of space and a great spot to set up a first distillery. Yeah, for sure. When we get the keys, December 2009, I think it was. Yeah, around then.
Yeah, December 09. And there's a photo, which I haven't got tonight, but there is a photo I was going to include later, which is it's this photo of the first spirit run off the still. It was January 2010. I thought it was rather cool. But that photo there was taken a little bit later that photo I think is 2011, and that was taken from Martin Eber from Time for Whiskey, who we had on last week. Awesome. He was great. And a very young Sam Slaney.
Employee number 1.
Yeah, employee number 1. There he is. And that's you can just catch Dave Vitale in the orange cleaning T-shirt on the far left there with a mop and bucket. So he's hard at work.
Did you take this picture?
That is not my picture. No, actually, it was Chris Middleton that took that photo, and he sent that one through to me, and he said, have a look at this, and I was like, oh my, look at this. This is so cool. So there it is. There's the first operation. This is and that photo was taken in March 2010. I know that much, and it was the third month of running the still, the third month of production.
Just the 500 litre still, just the single still.
Yep. 500 litre single still. You can catch just on the left of Sam's face there, facing us, a rack of barrels there. That's probably the entire filled barrels of Starward at the time.
Yeah, wild.
Then the original bottling hall. I love this photo as well. This is the original bottling hall, and David looks noticeably younger in that photo. And there's my friend Andrew on the right, and they were. I think it was just masterclass 100 litre Apera or something being bottled that day, and it was and that was the original bottling hall. I mean, but all Starward was bottled in that room at that stage. It wasn't. It's this room is smaller than a bedroom, and the entire bottling operation was done there. And I thought it was just like at the time, you think especially if you've been to a Scotch whiskey distillery before, you're like, I can't wait to see the bottling hall. And it's like bottling hall becomes a sort of bottling closet very quickly, and it's like, oh, wow, this is such a nascent industry. It's so exciting though. And the little the heat shrinker machine for the capsules was this sort of like off-board motor with the heating gun on it.
Yeah. Like I haven't seen these pictures before, so it's like looking at this equipment. I'm like, oh, we still have that. We still have that. Like that stainless steel tables, definitely still in there. That capsula, with that you essentially
Yeah.
just like have to shove in like that. They only got rid of that about 16 months ago or something, so we got a new one in. But yeah, like that was I started my first couple of months with the team. I was like straight into lockdown, and so I was out at Brooklyn helping bottle a few single casks, and we'll literally same setup as this. It's come a long way, even in the last 18 months. But it was interesting times.
That's so exciting, though. One of my favorite aspects was a photo I took in the bottling hall, because after it was an airplane hangar, or before it was, I can't remember. It was it was used as a factory of some description, and they had the Australian Airlines Social Club, the cigarette prices still sticky taped onto the wall, so you could buy a pack of Winfield Extra Mild for $3.30. People, anyone who's still a smoker today and looks at the price of cigarettes now versus then is going to be weeping a bit.
Yeah. Wild. It's like an American prices. Go to Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, that's one of the final photos there of sort of the last iteration of the Essendon Fields bar and tasting area, which I loved. It had a certain vibe to it, being next to all the gear like that.
Yeah, it did. It was awesome. I think we went out. I was at 1806 cocktail bar. We went out in 2014, I think, with Slater, and just sat around that bar and drank ridiculous amounts of whiskey. It was a great time.
There's some great questions coming in, and I want to make sure I get to all of them. So if you've asked a question in the comments, we are going to answer it. They include things like, can you ask what this partnership with the Michelin Guide is about, Matt? We'll get to that. And if you can talk on that, but and then there's and Matt, quick question: when Starward was young, like in these picks, and given the quality of the spirit, how did they source quality casks with no established reputation? Was that difficult? That's a good question. Actually, we can take that one now if you like.
Yeah, for sure. Like it was difficult for sure, and we definitely built connections over the years and found sort of the whiskey, or the barrels, I should say, that work best with our spirit. But look, that was just putting in the groundwork early on and establishing those connections, going to the wineries, some of them telling you to piss off and go and see their Cooper because they can't be bothered dealing with you. And then, like if you ever chat to Dave about when we first started experimenting with red wine cask, like it was just a out of the blue call from Yalumba that heard that we're chasing red wine barrels and like, hey, do you want the 100 litre cup, which you can see on the pallets out the back there, those 100 litre casks. Those ones there. So that was sort of a bit by chance, but yes, we still work with Yalumba. We've still got some of those 100 litre casks. They make some delicious whiskey. But look, it had its challenges. But back then, like the volume was smaller, right? So it's like if you found someone with 10 barrels, you were like, sick, let's go. Like, we'll take them. Whereas now you're like, oh, you've got those 10? Okay, I need 10 more next week. And then the week after that, and then every week for the next 5 years, if you want to, like, if we're going to take it in, because our volume's just exponentially grown every year. So we can't really entertain those small sort of cute wineries that have a few barrels out the back, unless it's going to be like a projects release or experimental release. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Good
problems to have, especially if you know, I call them growing pains. You know, then they're good to have. But great comment here from Robert Akers, who says, big thumbs up for doing large format casks instead of just 20 liters. And that's true. I mean, you've got to for playing the long game. You can't just put stuff in 20s. Although you guys did for a while put 20, 50s, and 100s down. I remember it was sort of like part of that mix. Then they eventually phased out.
Yeah, it's a hard one, right? Because it's like at the core of everything that Dave was trying to do was to make whiskey accessible, like Australian whiskey accessible. Obviously, price point was a big thing there, but then in terms of flavor as well, right? Like you can't expect someone who's never had whiskey before to fall in love with a cask strength, heavily oaked, intense whiskey. You know what I mean? You need to have that balance. So, but you've also got to start somewhere, right? Like it costs money to fill up a barrel of whiskey, and if you're not sure if it's going to work or not, you might start with a 20 litre cask instead of a 300 litre hogshead. But once you figure out your recipe and your method, it's good to go.
Yeah. I'm going to go to the. We're going to swap screens around. Here we go. We're going to go back to some of these photos now. The distillery in Essendon here really did outgrow itself pretty quickly with the expansion and the size and scale and output. And that's when the search obviously began properly for a new site, if you like. And that's where Port Melbourne comes in, which is your current home of the distillery. And I doubt many people have seen this photograph. This photograph is the Port Melbourne distillery with nothing in it. This is the empty shell before they moved in. But I want to show you just, this, it doesn't really give sort of a sense of scale, but it was quite something. It's quite a big room, and it's much taller as well than Essendon in terms of the ceiling height, which makes a lot of difference in terms of racking casks.
Yeah, exactly right. I think we can stack 5 high at the moment, which is great.
Yeah, awesome. And I also think it's got a lot of character, that room. I love it.
It does. Old tram construction.
Yeah.
Factory.
Oh, right. Yeah. Tram construction. Right. Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what the bar looks like today. It's that's all sort of. I think actually that photo was probably closer to when it was just. I can see twofold, so it wasn't when it was opened, but yeah, it was. That's closer to what it looks like.
It's about a year ago or so. Yeah, they've got. I think that's Dolce on the bottom corner there as well.
Yeah. Yep. This is a sort of the first iteration, if you like, of what the completed Port Melbourne looked like, with the sort of the main distillery part taking up that main section of the floor. I mean, it's changed a bit now. But I still think it's cool to see where, the progress stages throughout the distillery's history and all the casks being held at the back there.
So, it looks a bit different now.
It does. Yeah, we're going to get to that. What's this?
This is Brooklyn. You don't really hear much about Brooklyn. It's just a barrel warehouse, right? So we started filling up like 2.5. Yeah, we've almost got mature whiskey coming out of there. So in the next year or so, we'll start getting some of your twofold and your Nova will be barrels coming out of this warehouse. But it's literally just a bond store, I guess, for two guys who work out there, and we essentially over the course of like a week or so at Port Melbourne, we'll fill up 20,000 litres of new make spirit and then tanker that over to Brooklyn, and then they'll water it down on site and then chuck it into the barrels. So they're taking all the barrel deliveries, they're steaming out barrels, filling with new make spirit. It's a busy spot. There's always things going on. But again, like we've almost filled that up as well. So I think that we've got our eyes on the warehouse behind this one, which I think we'll get into in a couple, or maybe the next year or two. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. There's some great comments and questions coming in. Someone's asked here, what barrel was 148 in and what's the flavor profile? It was in a first fill Apera barrique. That's Apera. Or for those who are tuning in from our European branch at all, that's basically ex-sherry. But we can't really use that word. So it's ex-sherry barrique, which is a fancy French word for barrel. So it's essentially a 200-litre ex-sherry barrel. So, and the flavor profile is deep, rich, and dried fruits. We'll get closer to we'll talk a bit more about 148.1 as we go in. Matt and Matty, Matt/Matt, which cask style do you think fits the Starward spirit best? Well, that's an easy one. Matty, you take that one.
Yeah, well, if you know Starward, you know we love red wine. That's our main focus. We love going back to Dave, I guess, and wanting to make a unique Australian whiskey and not just replicate a bourbon or a Scotch. And in creating that, you needed to focus on local casks that you could get. And Melbourne and Victoria and Australia has an amazing wine industry. All within a day's drive, we can get to Barossa Valley, McLaren Vale, Peacecourt, Yarra Valley, Mornington. And they use their barrels for 5 to 7 years, and then they don't need them anymore, right? So we'll take them in, fill them up, and they're still like, it's interesting, right? Because you compare an ex-red wine barrel that we get in compared to like a first fill ex-bourbon barrel, let's say a Scotch distillery gets in. The actual, like the barrel itself, the staves, a wine barrel is about twice as thick. And then they're only putting wine in it that's like 12%, let's say, compared to a bourbon, which is 60 odd percent, and they stay in there for about the same time, right? Like bourbon cask, anywhere between 4 to 8 years. Wine, they'll use it. Different vintages will go into it each year, but they'll hold on to it for about the same time. But then by the time we get it, these red wine barrels, they've still got so much life in them, right? They're almost like semi-virgin casks if you compare it to a first fill ex-bourbon, because the bourbon's had a lot more pulled out of it. Same oak, right? American oak a lot of the time. But yeah, so that's sort of what we love, and we sort of do a lot of it. But it's up to you, right? Like we do fill other casks, and such as Apera, such as experimental range in the projects.
Which there's some good questions about. I mean, there's good questions and comments coming through about that. The bourbon cask project was stunning too, says Dr. Akers. Question here is, any chance we'll see a cognac cask again? And there's also another question of any chance of a stout cask finished Starward. So you could probably kill two birds with one stone with those two questions.
What was the first question again?
Cognac. Any chance we'll see a cognac cask?
Oh, look, I've because trade's been shut down due to lockdown. I've been in the Bond store, and we got these old cognac casks in the other week actually, and they'd been sitting obviously on a boat for too long in a hot container, and they essentially all needed to be recoopered. Like we started filling them up, and they were just like spraying whiskey everywhere. So I spent like 3 or 4 days just recoupering cognac barrels, knocking the hoops down. So yeah, keep an eye out. There are cognac barrels floating around, and not just the ones we got in the other week. We definitely, when we released that original project, like people went nuts for it, right? Like it was so good.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, like we've had some more coming in since then. So yeah, we'll keep playing around with that. Bourbon cask as well. We love bourbon. Like we never wanted to be like just going back to not wanting to be just another Scotch or another bourbon, but made in Australia. We would have sort of shot our foot if we just went the ex-bourbon road, right? Like we needed some point of difference. But in saying that, god damn, it makes some delicious whiskey. So we've been filling up bourbons. Going back to what I was saying about bourbon casks having a lot more sort of flavor pulled out by the original fill, it does take a bit longer for us to mature that, to get that oak to spirit balance. So our bourbon casks are closer. If you would release them anywhere between like 5 to 7 years for a bourbon cask, I think is sort of our sweet point. Sweet point for that. Whereas a red wine is closer to that 3 or 4 year mark.
There is some good questions coming through, I think, from some of our European members tonight. This morning their time. For those tuning in who have just tuned in, by the way, we're just having a casual chat tonight with Matty Follent from Starward Distillery. In case you missed the beginning of the stream, the brand ambassador for Starward Distillery and an absolute pioneer of spirit here. We're talking about the local industry. We're talking about Starward. We're talking about 148.1. There's some great comments and questions coming through. Jesse Morgan did ask, how long does a red wine barrel last, aka how many times can you use it? As in, like, do you using refills?
Yeah, we do have a portion that we use for refills. Majority of them is single use though, like the fresh red wine that we get in, those red wine barrels, we normally just use them once, whereas the charred casks, we'll use them twice. We also then use, like we have some, like the Nova, we don't really speak to it, but like Nova, Fortis, and Solera, we definitely speak to it. We have Solera barrels, so essentially we'll essentially water it down to about 52% ABV, put it back to barrel, let's say Nova, back to barrel, let it marry, pull it out, cut it down to bottling strength, and then bottle it. So we obviously need barrels for those, but most of the time it's single use. But then, we do have a portion of second fill that we use as well.
Very cool. Well, I think I'll keep going through some of these comments and what coming through and get through some of these photos. Starward X Bourbon is certainly tasty gear, says someone here as well.
Sir.
Yes, sir, indeed. I showed the Brooklyn Bond. Then we fast forward to, I'm gonna take a stab here. Was it like 2018 for the new, or was it 2019?
Oh, it would have been
for the new stills here,
12.
like the.
This was like 12 months ago.
Oh right, okay. I'm dialing back too far. So this is early 2020 here.
Yeah, I think we'll shut. No, this has been closer to 18 months, I'd say. Yeah, 18 months ago. Obviously, COVID's just a blur at the moment, right? But yeah, this is like we shut March 2020, and then by the time we finished commissioning, it's probably like 5 or 6 months after that. So
expansion, and there's that second level that's sort of gone in now and has grown in your current site again, which is exciting to see. I want to talk a little bit about some of the process that went on behind actually building out the 148.1. I mean, this was, like I said earlier on, that question was already asked, so I've sort of covered a lot of this already about that whole sort of this is an opportunity for us to work with downstream, work with the team at Starward in picking out casks, and we picked out 8 and then 10 samples to go through. And there's my hand holding a glass, waiting for that next sample to come through. And I think actually that was a sample of one of those casks on the left that I still have my eye on, actually, because they were bloody fantastic. And I think we know what they were, but they were very exciting. And great. And then, of course, the month later, of course, was after selection was the bottling date. Now, I want to again apologize to everyone who's buying this as a 6-year-old whiskey. It's not. It's a 7. It ticked over in wood, and we'd already had the labels printed. So let's just call that a production hiccup. But at the same time, all that matters is what's inside the bottle in the end. And this was sort of, as I said when talking about the 147, or we're talking about this 148 as well, it's not real for us at the Society until we see it happening. You can talk about the casks, and you can see purchase orders, and you can see process and tasting panel and planning and marketing and everything like that. And that's all fine, but it's not real until I see them coming off the bottling line and start going into production with the red caps. There's the deep, rich, and dried fruit caps going on. And then there's, of course, the Apera for everyone 148.1, which is what we're sampling tonight and is in the October Outturn on the 1st of October, a week from tomorrow away. 58.3%. It says on the front, cherry chocolates, beeswax flavored by creamy apricot syrup, diluted, a big Australian aged Apera, and duck confit with strawberry balsamic. Matty and I are going to have a quick taste of this. Now, I actually managed to get him a sample just the other day.
And I the last time I tasted this was when you were bottling it, right?
That's right, yeah. And you were part of that process of sort of bottling and seeing that come all through action, which was really exciting for us. But this is like, this is I'm still going to maintain I think Tim Wilkins in the thread said it's kind of that it smells like, it reminds me of Essendon in a really cool way. It reminds me of that whole sort of that Essendon spirit, if you like. But it also, it's super relaxed. At cask strength, it doesn't drink or nose like a cask strength for me. It drinks and noses like a really relaxed kind of whiskey in a good way. It's an armchair dram, this one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, very aromatic. Like, it's just that Starward like banana. It's there, right? I love it because it's like you can always pick it, but it's always slightly different. Like, is it green, unripe peel? Is it like really dark stewed sort of banana? And with the Apera cask and letting it mature for 7 years, it's more developed. It's rich. It's rounded. That beautiful stewed fruit flavor. Exactly.
There's some great comments coming through. Anything like that Doublewood and your project release, that juice was delicious. Also, an SMWS single cask ginger beer would be a shock to the system if it passed the tasting panel. You know what? I'd say never say never, because we've passed some pretty odd things on panel, and I think that we could pass a cask strength ginger beer cask, but I doubt that the distillery would want to let it go. Actually, it's probably you want to keep it for yourselves. And someone replied to that saying that, I reckon an SMWS single cask ginger beer would shut down the internet. It probably would. We'd be ready for that. And a great question on coming our YouTube stream. Will there be some bottles on the shelves to try at the distillery? Yes. That's provided that the bar is open and able to serve customers outside of lockdown. But we have sent a bottle of each of the first 2 releases to the bar and with the instruction to please to serve it at the bar and enjoy it. I'm assuming no one's pinched off with them and they're still somewhere behind the bar, which would be really encouraging to hear. So
no, I saw them the other day in the back cupboard. They're definitely there, so it's good to go. Exciting to have them in.
Yeah, it's great because we like to think of our relationship with distilleries at the Society as symbiotic as part of that story. When it's not just about buying casks and selling them, it's about bringing in that relationship with our community, bringing members into your bar and saying, hey, you know what, you can try our independently bottled spirits as well. That's exciting. I think that's exciting. It works for both of us in that regard as well. And Jesse Morgan says, I go with banana bread or dry banana chips a lot of the time.
Yeah, so do I.
And someone says here, yep, can't wait to try them over the bar. We'll be first in line to try. Yeah.
Can't wait to have you in. Fingers crossed it's soon enough.
It's really evolving now. I tried this a couple of times with water as well, and it changed it again. It was like, I'm just going to add a few drops of water. I don't have the right water apparatus here, but I've got just enough and drop in that bottle there.
Definitely get the spiced banana bread, right? Like even on the Solera, which is Solera, obviously Apera cask, but a bit younger. I definitely get that a lot, but yeah, it's 100% in here. Oh, a few drops of water in that banana jumped.
But I know what I mean by strawberry balsamic. You know, that sort of like the idea of like a sort of a strawberry shortbread and like 100%. Duck confit, like a duck.
Bit of that meatiness there.
There is a meatiness to it. I think I said that with Martin. There's that sort of almost like a meatiness that you get from something like a Mortlach or a Balmanac kind of spirit, where you get that that spirit meatiness, as well as there's cask meatiness in here. But there's a spirit meatiness which I love.
Yeah, for sure. So, what year was this put in the barrel?
27th of November 2013.
Yeah.
So November. Yeah.
Towards the end of like our Essendon Fields days, we started to develop this like meatiness in the spirit, but it only sort of came out after a couple of years of maturation. But yeah, it's definitely there.
Great tasting there from Jesse Morgan. I think he's asking about this. Is there bacon fat? Yeah, I think that is applicable. Yeah.
Yeah. The Apera casks always bring that beautiful mouthfeel, viscosity, like as you said, beeswax, right? It's almost like, Aberfeldy to me, or like iconic for their, or what other distillery? Clean Leash. They have that beautiful waxy texture. With the Apera and Starward, it definitely comes out. Yeah.
I've got a rule of thumb when it comes to Clean Leash. If you meet someone who says they don't like Clean Leash, it's probably because they don't like whiskey. You know what I mean? It's right. Okay. Well, maybe whiskey's not your thing. You know?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Distillery 26. Yeah, but we do love our Clean Leashes at the society. And I think we can now say we officially love our 148s as well, which is really exciting to taste this with you, Matty, and for you and the distillery to be a part of this story means a lot to us, because I've had a personal, as you've seen from the photos, a personal and long relationship with the distillery, just from an enthusiast or professional level. And I think to take that relationship to that next level and say, look at this, we can pick out some amazing casks for our members from Australian whiskey and just show the world as well, because a good portion of this cask is being sent to the UK, which is exciting. So UK members will get a stab at this as well, and see what it's all about. Why not? Yeah,
100%. That's a dream, right? To make delicious Australian whiskey and show the rest of the world. So, yeah, exciting to be selected by a caliber of SMSWS for sure. It's How did it go? Like in terms of selection on your end, did you pitch this to a panel and they tasted all and yeah?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was if we had to delve into that side of it just for a second, there were 4 samples sent to me from Starward in I'm gonna say 2017, and none of them passed panel. And they just, it's not that they weren't of any like lacking of any quality. It's just that they were all 4 samples were very, 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 very similar to each other, and there was nothing sort of unique that jumped out on any of them. And I think we just sort of let them lapse, and they didn't work out for us at the time. I won't mention what cask type they were, but they weren't your usual cask type. Let's put it that way. And so we sort of let them go for a while, and then I think 2019 came around, and we reignited the discussion with the distillery, which is great. And and then I think it was from a phone call with Dave or Chris, or maybe even with Sam or something. But I think it was actually I think it was Chris, and I said we really should have that chat again. And he's like, "Oh, that's a top idea. Let's do it." It's like, and so then and that's when it was a much bigger deluge of samples to pick from, and much more of a story for us to go with. This is great. And I think now that I've let the cat out of the bag that the society's sending some of this to the UK, our European members are going to start hunting. I think there's going to be a line out the door at the vaults for this. Don't ask me when they're releasing it, because it's actually still here in Australia. Their bottles are still here in our Bond store, so we've still got to send them to them. So don't hold your breath. And shipping at the moment sucks. So it's on its way though. That's a lounge chair of a dram, and I mean that really. Like it's one that you could on a Sunday afternoon with a good book kind of dram. It commands your attention, but not in a distracting way. It's lovely.
Yeah, for sure.
And members will know I've been one of the most critical of Australian whiskey. I've been super critical of Australian whiskey in the past, as Andrew, as many people, that we want to see it improve, and we want to see that quality improve over time of the whole pie of Australian whiskey. And I think this sets a new benchmark, I think, for the society to say this is worthy of being bottled by the society. We're very, very picky. Our current pass rate, as I've talked about before on stream, our current pass rate's like 54% or something. The panel only approve what is good enough to go into the bottles. So for us to be able to bottle this and say, look at this, like this is incredible. It's exciting for us to see. It's out on October 1st, Friday, October 1st, with the rest of October Outturn, of course. Now that I've made that mention of bottles going over to the UK, I'm going to get requests like this one forever and ever now. I can't send a bottle to Gothenburg as much as I want to, and I know who's typing that. So, but there it is. There's 148.1, the full label for you to see. And we like to put all the detail on the bottle except the distillery name, but it's pretty obvious from tonight's chat which distillery it is. Matty Follent, can I thank you so much again for being part of tonight's live stream and being the star of tonight's live stream and us having a chat about great whiskey. Really appreciate it.
Mate, thank you. Great to be on here and share a dram with you, and excited to see this get into everyone's hands around the world, and looking forward to the next one.
And I'm looking forward to catching up with you properly for a beer when there's no masks or pubs that are closed. You know what I mean? That's the moment we're all looking for. It's you miss the moments in the bars and the pubs, and it's I tell you what, that first schnitzel and beer when they open is on me.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, mate.
Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere, Matty. I'll catch up with you in a second. But we'll kill the stream off here. I really appreciate all the members for tuning in, for being a part of this stream, for being a part of the society. And tell them the price, son. Tell them the price. I didn't even mention the price because we're too enthralled in the flavor. It's $230. It's in the SMWS Outturn this October, next month, next week's Outturn, if you like. For a 7-year-old, for their oldest ever bottled cask from this distillery, I think it's a fairly reasonable price, to be very honest with you. So $230, 700ml bottle, cask strength. You have to be a member of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society to buy a bottle. We only bottle for our members. We only hold our experiences for the benefit of our members, including Outturn, Unfiltered, partner bars. Everything that we do at the society is in the service of our members, of course. So if you are not a member yet, I should have mentioned this earlier. If you are not a member yet and you are interested in becoming a member of the society, you can go to www.smws.com.au. Sorry, I'm going to get it wrong. I'm going to get our own code wrong. But if you use the code, I'm just checking up on our screen here. Yep, there it is. If you use the code here, it is on screen. Use the word Apera, and that gets you $30 off any membership type to the society. Would love to have you join. You can join in time for October Outturn. There's no minimum commitment as a member, of course. You can always use your membership how you love it and talk to other members. They'll tell you how good it is. And I'll leave it there for now. No need to talk more about that. In the meantime, thank you again, Matty. We'll catch up soon. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you all soon.